The first thing we did was get a small multidisciplinary group of us together. So it wasn't just one person trying to organize this, but multiple agencies working together. And we sat down and we said to ourselves, where are older adults going to be most comfortable gathering to have conversations? And in this community, the Senior Center is well respected, was the clear place to be the host and provider for this particular process. And so they were the ones that opened up the registration and opened up their building to have the listening sessions. Then we thought, okay, how do we get older adults to show up for this? What language do we use to advertise so people are engaged in this process and want to do this? Because our goal was to have 100 older adults or older women or more participate in our focus groups. So we recognized that words like elder abuse, domestic violence, and sexual assault, not always the best draws for these kinds of activities. So we ended up saying we wanted to have conversations with older women about safety. We decided we wanted to have multiple groups at different times of the day to address the different schedules that folks have. So we started each group with a light meal. Thinking this was going to be a difficult topic. These were strangers coming together to have conversations. So let's just spend a little time relaxing, getting to know each other. We did breakfast for the morning ones. We did a light lunch for the lunch group, and snacks, kind of a fun dessert thing for the dinner group. We also knew in our community that we wanted to address cultural issues. We had one group that was for Spanish-speaking participants led by Spanish-speaking facilitators, and they had some wonderful, authentic Mexican food that they brought in for that group. And then we sat down after eating, sat in a circle, and the idea was that the facilitator would open with the purpose of the group conversation is to talk about safety. We're going to narrow that down to talking about intimate partner violence, caregiver abuse, and did a very brief description of physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and then only ask a handful of questions. We started with, did they have experience with these issues? Did they know someone who had been harmed, so that we could sort of get a sense of what might be going on in the community? And then what ideas did they have? What would they like to see happen? And we pitched some ideas to get conversation going if that was helpful. But we really tried to sit back and just let the conversation go where it was going to go. So overall, I thought the process went really well. We made a couple mistakes that I would encourage folks to think about. The first was, I'd been doing this work for a very long time, so I felt very comfortable walking in and facilitating by myself. And so the first group that I opened up, we had our nice meal, and that was great. We sat down, and I said we're going to focus on relationships where there's an expectation of trust, and these are spouses and partners and adult children. And I thought I'd start with the easier stuff, emotional abuse, and work my way to physical abuse. And so I said, the kinds of things we're talking about are threats and intimidation. And a woman's hand flew up and she said, so you mean when my husband was screaming at me and threatening me this morning, that's what we're here to talk about? And I sort of stepped back and thought two things. One, I wish I had tissues in the room. Fortunately, one of the older women stepped out and brought tissues in, so cleaning's always a good idea. And then we had to sort of regroup. And I then wished I had had a co-facilitator, because what we needed was someone to spend time individually with her while someone else facilitated the group. Fortunately, I have a background in working in domestic violence programs, so I tried to navigate the providing some support for her, not having her disclose more than she wanted to in a room of strangers, knowing the rest of the women were there for other reasons, although they were amazingly supportive, and knowing that her husband was playing pool outside the door, that we needed to get her back together enough to be able to walk out the door and go home with him, because that's what she wanted to do. So we were able to provide support, give her some resources to call so that she could leave with him, but knew that she had some options. And amazingly, with this group of women, still got some good information to help move the process along. In my experience running those listening sessions, there were disclosures in every single listening session. I'm not quite as immediate as that one, but almost every group had women who talked about intimate partner violence where the spouse had died or they had left that relationship. We had some disclosures about child abuse and incest. We had some older women talking about their caregivers abusing them 18 months ago or 6 months ago, so it wasn't a current situation, but was relatively new, and a number of them saying, this is the first time I've ever talked about this.